Hello, thanks for joining me. I'm in the workshop again and I've got the Triumph T140 up on the workbench because today I'm going to fit progressive fork springs to it. I made a video last year where I did a full service of the front suspension, and when I made that video I commented that once I'd serviced the brakes and improved the performance of the brakes, if I was finding I was getting a little bit too much dive on the front end under braking, then I would consider putting progressive fork springs in. Well, as I kind of predicted, that's happened. I've vastly improved the performance of the front brake now, and so I am getting quite a lot of dive. The front end is pretty soft. So what I'm going to do is remove the old fork springs, fit progressive springs, and then I'm also going to fit some heavier fluid in the front forks as well. When I reassembled the forks last year, I put 15W fork oil in, and I'm going to change that up to 20W just to see if that makes it a little bit firmer. Just experimenting, and as you'll see if you watch what I'm doing in this video, changing the fork oil is not a big job. So, you know, if it proves to be a little bit too stiff at 20, I can go back to 15. But I just want to try it on the 20 and see what it feels like, and with the uprated springs. So if you're interested in seeing what I'm doing, watch along and I'll record it the best I can whilst I'm working. First thing I'm going to do is drain the fork oil. So there's a drain plug here. I'll just zoom in. You can see there's a drain plug here at the bottom of the fork, so I'm going to remove that. And I've got a container here to catch the oil as it comes out, hopefully, and just in case I've got some workshop wipes. So just make sure I catch that as it comes out. There's a little aluminium washer on there as well. I'll show you when I've got it out. Right, so oh good, there's nothing coming out. I probably have to take the plug out the top for it to drain out, but I don't know if you can see here, if that'll focus, there we are, yeah. So that's the little screw. It's a crosshead screw, little aluminium washer on it, so I've got to put that somewhere safe. So I'll grab one of my little magnetic trays and pop it on there. Okay, yeah, there's just a little bit of oil starting to come out, but I think if I once I've undone the top, that will come out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the oil out of this side and the other side, and then I'll get back to you on removing the springs. In order to remove the fork springs, I first need to remove this cap. This is just like a plastic dust cap on here. If I can screw that off by hand. And underneath here is the proper fork cap, which requires an Allen key to undo it. But in order to get to it, so that's the cap, and if you have a look on there, it very usefully reminds you of how much oil to put in, 190cc in each fork. So that's just a plastic dust cap, and if you take that off, I'll move the camera around and show you. So with the dust cap off, hopefully you can see here now, that's the top of the fork stanchion, and that's the plug, and that's an Allen key wrench goes in there. But in order to be able to get the Allen key in there and line it up, I need to remove the handlebars here. So I'm just going to whip the handlebars off, and then I can open up the forks. in order to be able to get to remove the this cap and the fork springs, I'm just going to remove the handlebars. And the easiest way to do that is, this is a P-clamp that holds the handlebars on. It's just fastened underneath. So it's a, 9/16 spanner. And I'll undo the P-clamp on both sides and then just ease the handlebars back and rest them on the tank. So in order to protect the tank, I've got this blanket here because I don't want to scratch the tank. And so it's a bit difficult to get to see what I'm doing under here. This is a ratchet spanner, which is just easier when you're working in a tight space like this. I've got it loose, I'm just taking it off with my fingers now. Right, that's the nut off the end of that P-clamp. So I'll undo the other side and then lift the handlebars off. Right, that's both P-clamps undone, so I should be able to ease the handlebars out here, just gently. That's it, and I'm just going to lay them back like that, being careful not to damage the tank. Now, if I move that electric cabling out of the way, I can get to the fork cap and remove the fork cap. You need a 7/16 Allen socket to undo that fork cap. Just get that in there, loosen that off, just hold the front wheel, stop it from turning. There we are. Once you've got it eased off, it's very easy to take out. And it's not under a lot of pressure, isn't this? Because the spring just sits in there. It's not, you know, it's not going to jump out when you undo it. It is quite a long thread, as you can see. Right, that's the cap out. You can see there, and you can probably just make out the top of the spring. You see the top of the spring just sitting flush with the top of the fork there. Get that fork spring out, just tuck it in, just hook my finger in there, pull it out. Just got a bit of workshop tissue here to stop any, there's not that much oil on it, but just to stop any drips. Right, so that's the old spring. Let's go and compare it to the new one. Be interesting to see how it compares. So this is a spring I've just taken out. You can see it's shiny with the oil on it. And this is the new progressive fork spring. So the first thing you notice is I line this end up. The progressive spring is just a little bit longer. That may well be because this spring has just, you know, compressed over time, so it's got a little bit shorter. So yeah, it's going to go in a little bit more tension, because when I took this old spring out, that just sat flush with the top of the fork. So I'm going to have to press this in a little bit just to get it in there and get the cap on. And you can see on the progressive spring here, this is the progressive end, if you can put it that way. So you can see that it's more tightly wound at this end, and then it's more open at this end. So I'll put it with the more tightly wound end at the bottom. That goes down the bottom end of the forks. Okay, so let's swap them over and get this new spring in. I've refitted the drain plug at the bottom of the fork so I can put some new fork oil in. This is the stuff I'm going to put in, this Silkolene, and as I mentioned earlier, it takes 190 millilitres in each fork leg. So I'm just going to measure out in my measuring jug 190 millilitres and drop it into that fork. This is 190 millilitres in here, so I've got my funnel, and we'll run that in. This is the new progressive spring, so I'm going to drop it in there. This is the more tightly wound end. So as I said a minute ago, that's going to go at the bottom. I've been assured by my friend Tony Sargent, who's also a T140 enthusiast. He's actually the person that got me onto these springs, told me where to buy them. Been assured by Tony that they go with the tightly wound bottom at the end. So thank you for that, Tony. I shall take your advice on that. And just drop that in. And as you can see now, that now actually sticks out a little bit. I'll zoom in so you can see. Just zoomed in so you can see better. So you can see the new spring is definitely longer because that's sticking out a little bit. So I'm going to have to push that down a little bit just to get the cap on. So when you do that, you have to be careful that you don't, you know, when you're sort of working under pressure like that, you have to be careful that you don't cross thread the cap as you're putting it in. I think what I'll do is I'll fit like a finger grip onto my Allen wrench to put that on. You'll see what I mean. Well, whilst I mentioned my friend Tony, I'll just pan round a little bit to show you something else that Tony put me onto. Just showing you, I've got this really great little rubber boot over the ignition key there. It just fits over, just put it over the ignition switch, and that just stops water getting in there when it's raining, which, you know, tend to rain in the rain quite a lot in the UK. So again, thank you very much, Tony, for that tip on and getting that on there and where to buy them. To get the fork cap back on, I'm going to use this finger grip ratchet on the top of my Allen key. Just allows me to sort of push down with my hand and apply some pressure to compress that spring as I get the cap lined up and get the thread mated, and then once it's in and threaded, then obviously I can tighten it up using the normal ratchet. So probably going to have my arm in the way here, but I just need to apply a bit of force down on that spring. It's actually not too much. That's reasonably easy to compress and hold in place, is that actually. Now I've got that threading properly, I can actually tighten it down with the normal ratchet. And you know you've not got it cross threaded if it's going in easily like this. This is actually going in very easily. There's just a little bit of friction on there because this cap actually has an insert which sits inside the spring, and the spring is gripping it, so I can feel there's well, it's actually probably turning the spring with the cap inside. Right, just nip that down. Just grab the front wheel. Right, that's it. Good. Right, I can put the dust cap on as well. Now replace that dust cap. I don't forget, it's easier. I can't put that on with the handlebars back on, but it's easier just threading it on now and I've got access to it. So tighten that down and go around and do the other leg. Now Right, that's the cap back on. Just get that out. Put the little plastic cover over that, and that's both forks done. Lovely. Right, so let's get the handlebars back on. Right, that's the right hand clamp on. I'll get the nut on the left hand clamp and then I'll tighten them both down. This ratchet spanner is really useful for when you're working in tight spots like this, because it's not quite enough room to get socket. Well, maybe you could get a socket in there range, but just makes it so much easier. There we are. So how tight do you make it? Well, just tight enough, but not too tight. But there we are, that's the handlebars back on. So take that blanket off the tank now. So we're all back together. There we are, so job done. That was quick and easy. We've got new progressive fork springs in and slightly heavier fork coil. So just need to take it for a ride now and see what it's like. Hopefully less dive under braking, and be interested to see what the handling is like as well. I'll report back and let you know. Thanks for watching, see you, bye.